actually just thought of it as I walked down the hall.
Didn't that happen in the election? Didn't something happen when someone's microphone was still on?
Oh, all the time it happens.
Yeah.
More
Tim, you
hotline
ready?
situation.
I'm ready, should we go? Okay. So if I were to summarize the last 45 minutes of conversation, I would say that Circles has a very particular value proposition. And if that value proposition can be made very clear, and if the members of your groups can perceive that it's for real, then you'll have a group that sticks together and has great energy. And the way I see that value proposition is this, that there are actually very few, and for most people, perhaps not any, life situations where you can show up with a group of people and that there is true intimacy and trust. And you can take from that a sense of being close and getting support and sharing things that you don't have other places to share. That's a very unusual circumstance. Now, when you begin your Circles group, you're actually fighting against something. You're fighting against my mental model and everyone's mental model of what this might be or could be. In other words, I've never experienced this before, probably. And I'm comparing it to other get-togethers of HBS women, other professional networking type events. And one thing that has to happen is that you need to demonstrate, the group needs to demonstrate to itself that this is different. This is different from all of those settings. Because if it becomes just another place to meet and talk about some topics and stay at a certain level, it won't last because there are other places to do that, other places that might be more convenient. So the task becomes making that real and demonstrating that this in fact is a very different situation. Okay. The first line here says there's no one right way to facilitate discussions, and that's certainly true. I run the coaching program here on campus, and one thing I say to coaches, and I have a history of training coaches and psychotherapists, and one thing I say to coaches is that you will become the coach that you already are. And by that I mean that you bringing your life energy, your authentic experience, bringing your full self to the session is what's going to make it feel authentic, make it feel real. So what you don't want to do here is learn a bunch of checklist things to do to be a good group facilitator. You want to bring yourself, your authentic self, and operate from that, and that's what will make the difference. And the same thing for the group. No two groups are going to have similar developmental paths. They're going to be a very particular type of experience. Okay. So your role, one thing I've done in the past, I've trained group psychotherapists, and beginning group psychotherapists typically make the same big mistake, and that is they work too hard, okay? They feel like they have to accomplish something, move the group to a place where it's going deeper or to more important issues, and that their intervention is what's going to bring it there. If you do that, you'll become exhausted. If therapists try to do that, they become exhausted, they become burnt out. And the same thing goes for any type of group facilitator. It's the energy of the group that takes the group. It's the energy of the group and what's arising, what is authentically arising from the members of the group that are going to carry the group. And our job as facilitators really is to allow that to happen, and if something comes up that's blocking that, to intervene to remove what's blocking it so that the energy of the group can continue, okay? So it's not us putting something there or injecting our thoughts or ideas or our brilliant leadership ability. It's us removing something so that the energy of the group, the authentic needs and life energy of the members can emerge. Okay, the providing structure thing should be self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So Laura, you going to talk about
Yeah,
this?
see, this page gets to some of the things you were asking about the finding the balance as a facilitator and how it can impact the group and what we've learned from feedback. And what we tried to do here was give really an overview of what to try to model and conversely what to try not to do. And I think it's all pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to read down each list unless you guys see something that you want me to amplify. But overall, like on that chart a couple pages ago where it said there's this kind of Goldilocks syndrome, part of being a good facilitator is to lend some structure, but not too much. You're guiding, but you're not being heavy-handed about it. Like if someone interjects a comment that sounds judgmental, it's not like, whoa, Lori, back off. So, you need to be incredibly diplomatic and nuanced how you do intervene. So the way we've tried to think about it is this notion of you're guiding in a warm way. You're being flexible when you need to. And if there are hiccups or hurdles, you ask the group to help manage it so that you're not the only one either trying to manage it or taking on the entire responsibility. So do these two lists kind of resonate based on what we've already talked about? Great. I know it's a very sketchy. So there are a couple pages here on the difference between discussing something and processing. This may be helpful, but it's not like you have to follow this per se. In essence, a discussion is kind of freewheeling, and maybe someone gets some help from a discussion around a topic they want. Whereas processing has a little more structure to it. If someone's going through something important, maybe they say, I've got this concern. They explain it, the group analyzes it, and maybe the group helps her explore how she might want to address it. But it takes, it's critical that the person who has the issue talk about what they would want, what she would want as the outcome. So, can you flip here? If someone is processing, then it's not helpful if someone says, oh, that made me think of an article, blah, 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 and it goes up into the ether at 35,000. If someone's processing, then chances are she's really vulnerable, and you want to make sure that you're honoring and helping the group respect it. Sometimes someone will talk about something really personal, and someone in the group may get uncomfortable, and they'll try to veer away from it. So it's up to you to help bring it back, to help her process. And that's when this notion of it's really important to have empathy, but that's not the same thing as getting caught up in whatever the drama is of what she's talking about. So it may be that it's a question of saying, what is it you're looking for us to help you with here as you process it? Are you trying to make a decision? Is there an actual is there a problem you want to solve? Because that'll impact how you all think about it. Problems, creativity, whereas decisions, people are trying to get a lot of different input and knowledge from different people.
I'm going to add one more thing, and that is about the energy of the group and the importance of monitoring that. If a group's really engaged, it's something that you can pick up on viscerally. People are there, their posture signals that they're there, their energy, people are alert, you can see it in their faces. People are, whether they're speaking or not, they're in the room and they're present. And a job of the facilitator is to try to keep the group at that state of full presence and full participation. Sometimes that means lending energy and bringing energy up, and sometimes it means bringing things down if there's a lot of conflict, or if there's not that the groups necessarily have a lot of conflict, but if there's someone who is taking a lot of the airtime and taking energy out of the group. So if there are people who are quiet and you're picking up on non-verbally that they have checked out in a way or about to check out, being able to invite them in, saying, Hillary, you look very pensive. I'm wondering what you're thinking about, or you seem like you have thought about that. Inviting that person in. Good facilitators have this body feel for the group. They've got a feel for the level of presence of a group. And if it's there, it's there. There's not much you have to do. But if it's not, there are things to do. So we can do some role plays?
Well, I think what we're going to do is first talk about the
tough stuff.
concepts,
Okay.
and then use the
Okay.
role plays as examples.
Righto, okay. So one topic, it's just difficult emotions. And I was about to say, it's not likely this will come up right away in a group, but I don't know if that's true. I mean, it might. When our coaches, our MBA coaches, about 3 years ago, we were given the mandate to do coaching for alums. So you're all eligible for coaching, by the way. And when we did that, the coaches reported back that it was very different, coaching an MBA versus coaching an alum, because there was all sorts of life stuff. And they had been trained in our training to work with, typical 28-year-old problems. But now they were dealing with issues like divorce and loss and very difficult situations, and they didn't know how to deal with that when that stuff came up. So in listening to them, I realized there were two situations that were most upsetting to them. One was a grief loss situation, and the other was an intense anger situation. That these were the things that these coaches who had been trained in career development coaching felt like they needed a little help with. So I'm going to want to say something about both of these, because if your group stays together for a period of time, it's likely that that a loss events will come into the group. And they are very powerful, okay? And the group can be helpful. The group can be very helpful. But it's important to know what the group can do and can't do. Let's talk about grief and loss. What someone who is grieving, and loss could go anywhere from a big disappointment at work to the loss of a loved one who's very close. So obviously there's a spectrum here. What someone who has experienced a loss needs more than anything else is someone to be completely present with them, okay? And to listen as deeply as possible. And this is something that a group can provide in a very powerful way. Pure presence, deep listening. We're here, we're tuned in, we're completely with you. If you talk about the healing that can be provided by an outsider during a grief event, and this is true whether it's in a group or whether it's check this for yourself from your own life loss events. 90% of the healing will be just that. And we always think, well, there's got to be something more. I've got to say the right thing. I've got to suggest something. I've got to think about resources. I've got to come up with, a course of action. Sometimes those things are helpful, but that would fall into the 10%. So when this is happening in your group and there's a grief or loss event, your job is to make sure the group's there for them and listening deeply. And that's really what the group can do. There's the bottom of all feelings notion. When there's a big loss event, when there's a true grief event, one of the most difficult parts of that is the notion that it will go on forever and that it's unending, it's bottomless. It goes on, it's this bad now, it'll get worse and worse and worse. And the thing to know about grief is that is not true. I mean, there will be times when the feelings are experienced more intensely, but grief is really the bottom of human of the human emotional spectrum. It's about being there and allowing a natural process to happen, okay? One thing to watch out for as a facilitator, if your group is someone's bringing a loss event, is advice giving, is people wanting to jump in and give advice about what they might do. And if that's happening, intervening and simply saying, you know, I think Alicia needs our attention and needs our listening. And later on we can determine if she's looking for advice. Anger, okay? So the event may well arise where you have a member of your group who is extraordinarily upset or extraordinarily angry. And
not at the group, but just about something.
not at the group or about something, or perhaps
Right.
that the anger is being either displaced or directed at a member of the group.
Right.
But more likely, just really upset and angry. So, how do we do that? If someone's angry, it's the opposite of grief. Anger is never the bottom of things. Anger is always an attempt to hide another affect, to hide another feeling experience, whether it's hurt or loss or grief or some other type of upsetness that's too difficult to tolerate because it's just too difficult. It's passive. It's just there. That's so often converted to anger. So as a facilitator, you really have a choice at this point. You can allow the person to vent and intervene if it just gets too much. You do a time check and say, I'm concerned about the time we have left. Or you may choose to take it to a different level if you're comfortable with that. And the way you take it to a different level is you listen deeply. And what you're listening for is the feeling that's beneath the anger, because it's always there, okay? It's always. The hurt is always there, or the sense of loss is always there, or the sense of fear is another thing that's often there, a sense of great vulnerability and fear. It's being converted into this anger not to experience the fear. And a great move in the way I like to take it is I listen deeply until I'm fairly confident that I know, was this person hurt by this event? Is there fearfulness here? Is there a sense of loss? And I'll say that. And I'll say something like, that must have really hurt when he said that. Or wow, that must be pretty scary. If he was saying that, you know, my mind might have gone to maybe my job's on the line. I will make an interpretation of what the underlying feeling is, and that's an invitation to go deeper. So it's up to you as a facilitator to know your own comfort level. You have an opportunity to really take it deeper and have the group be present for that. But if you're not comfortable doing that, or if you're not sure you know what it's about, then that's not the thing to do. Pay attention to where you are. Okay? Disruptions of norms. Okay? These are three I think probably fairly typical ways that a group can get headed in the wrong direction. And I'm going to be very brief because then I think the more powerful way to do it is do some actual role plays. It's too talkative. The group member who just takes a whole lot of airtime and needs a whole lot of airtime for whatever reason, you know, when we could go into that, you know, all the different reasons that they need that. The person who's overly withdrawn, the person who's kind of leaving the group. And this is the one to watch out for, and I don't think it's in a role play, so I'll just say something briefly. Just bring the person back in, you know, and don't be afraid to be fairly direct about that, you know, to say, you know, Alicia, you really look like you're not fully here. Is there something going on? Can you check and just see if there's something going on? Just go right for it. And I can't remember an experience where that hasn't been welcomed in a way.
Yeah, and sometimes someone might say, I'm here, I'm just really processing what I hear you guys talking about, or, you know, you'll probably get to know me in the next couple of weeks. I'm quieter, but I'm definitely here, and thanks for checking in.
Right, sure. Advice giving, a good way to think about advice in groups is not to give it, unless someone wants it, okay? All the therapeutic power. I mean, if you go to psychotherapy and your therapist is giving you a lot of advice, that's usually not therapy, it's something else, okay? The healing power is coming from the presence of the group. But there are times when we want to problem solve and we ask for advice and we want advice. But the thing to do as a facilitator is to clarify that. If we're talking about something that a member of the group is talking about something that's very difficult and another member jumps in and says, you know what I do, I think you really should consider this. You've got a role and you've got to do it, you've got to go right there at that time. You've got to say, I'm not so sure, Hillary, I'm not so sure that you're ready for advice yet because I don't feel like I've fully heard your situation. So why don't we listen some more, Hillary? And then, Hillary, I'm going to ask you if you'd like some advice or not. So even if you've set that as a norm at the very beginning of the first session, when you see a violation, you've got to go right at it, or it erodes the norm.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For sure.
So in my circle, our circle, giving advice has become part of the circle.
Mm-hmm.
When we open up with our check-ins, people always talk about what issues they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it's become the opposite. And I go there because I want people to be able to give me the honest advice.
Yep.
And tell me the truth that I'm not going to hear from a lot of other people. So I don't know if this is a different dynamic related to advice or if it's just our circle.
So when you say you want advice, is it advice you want or is it feedback? You want reflection back from the people in the group?
What's the difference?
So feedback is, Haley, I know where you are. I've been there before. I'm wondering if this is going on or that's going on. Advice is, Haley, this is what you need to do. This is what I'd do right now if I were you.
I mean, I want help figuring out what are the optimal next steps.
That's advice. Okay.
And if you want it, I mean, I think what we're talking about here is there will be some people in some circles who aren't ready for advice because they're still kind of figuring out what their feelings are about some pesky challenge. And sometimes the pesky challenge is something uncomfortable for other people, so they run ahead to advice when what Hillary is really looking for is just hearing herself talk and working it out a bit before she's ready to say, okay, now I'm ready for some advice. So if that's where you guys are and everyone's loving it, no problems. But there are some times when people jump ahead to advice when someone's not even ready to hear it. And you may tell that they're not ready to hear it, and people are just trying to be helpful because it makes them uncomfortable, and the person who's going through it is being too nice. So she's nodding, but it's like going every which way but into her heart because she's just not ready to hear the advice.
Yeah, but you raise an interesting point that you may have established a culture or norm around advice giving in your group, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, but it may be that you just do more problem solving in your group than processing, to use the frame that Lori was using before. And if that's meeting people's needs, it's fine.
Got it.
Yeah. Sometimes advice giving, though, can be in the service of cutting off paying attention to something that's difficult. You're giving advice because we were starting to get into a pretty difficult place with some pretty strong feelings. And so as a facilitator, I'd be open for that. If you've established a strong advice giving norm in your group, I'd be open for whether or not something is being pushed aside because we're jumping too quickly to the advice. Does that make sense?
And maybe it's as simple as next time something comes up, it's like, so Lori, are you looking for advice here, or do you just want to kind of sort out some of your feelings about it first and hear how others have experienced something similar before we go there?
Okay.
And just kind of throwing it out there and seeing if it has any air or not.
So just briefly, this next slide, I'm going to skip bullet point 1 because I think it's part of a role play. But the second bullet point is important. And it's the situation, it can create a norm with nothing being said. by nothing being said. And that is, if someone is being very vulnerable, they're sharing difficult stuff, and there is anxiety in the group, and it's not acknowledged, or that this person is being vulnerable, saying something vulnerable, the group doesn't go there, what that is really signaling is that
She can't go there.
this group can't go there. Boy, that sort of thing is making us uncomfortable. So if someone is, you experience someone as expressing something that's a particular vulnerability, and the group is moving on or not acknowledging, it's important to step in and to say, well, I think that this is actually quite difficult, and we need to listen more and model an intervention like that. Must have been very difficult, some expression of empathy. Because groups can develop norms around what's acceptable and not acceptable, and those norms can be built on what gets reinforced and what doesn't get reinforced by what's brought up in the group. This very, I was going to say subtle, but if you're listening, it's not so subtle, message that we don't attend to that stuff, we attend to this stuff. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay.
Ready for some role plays?
Oh, but we should say something about this.
Okay.
So Circles is not a therapy group. And if someone is bringing an issue that clearly requires more time working through, that clearly is going to place great demands on the group, which means that other people are not going to get their needs met, then offline, it may become your role to suggest other sources of support. And we mentioned the grief or loss. The group can be very helpful in a grief and loss situation, but it can't be the only place where the person comes to, especially if it's a deep grieving. It's just going to take too much from the group. So people say, well, how do I refer somebody? How do you find a good therapist, a good counselor? And these are just some ideas. A local college counseling office, they won't be seeing, they only see the students or faculty, but they have a referral list of local therapists, employee assistance program, primary care physician, local church or synagogue.
So let's go back to
Yeah.
the page that has our role plays.
Oh, okay, are we supposed to be?
Yeah, that's what we're
Okay.
gonna do, and then we're gonna keep moving. All right? So, when we had our regional team, our national team meeting last week, sure, on HBX Live, we got all the new regional team members together, and one of them said, it would be great if you guys could do some role plays. So we thought we'd try it. We have 3 scenarios, as you can see here. That's what's going on.
And these are coming from real life experiences.
These are coming from real life experience in a number of groups, but they are also composites. And so I'm going to be the person who is expressing these things, one of them at a time, thankfully. And then I think we're going to run through it twice. Tim will be the facilitator, and then probably Jill and Lisa will come in and be group members.
Yeah.
Okay?
Lori's job is to give me a hard time, and I'll see how I do with it. But let me say one thing before we start.
You do that.
If there's a situation, and it's, where there's a difficult situation where the person is presenting a challenge to the integrity of the group or the purpose of the group, and you're the facilitator, you basically have 2 moves, okay? And that's why going through it twice is going to happen, because it'll be the same situation, but I'll do 2 different things with it. The first move is to move it back into the group, to get the group involved in the situation, or to bring in another member of the group. And the second move is for you to take it on directly as a facilitator by making an intervention directly with the person in question, okay? So there are 2 different possibilities there.
So I'm reading something, but I'm gonna do my best to deliver it not as a brilliant actor, but just with the intonation that these various situations have been shared with us. Are we game to try this out?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so my name is Cindy, and this
You
is,
could move just over the other bit, so,
you bet.
just the sidelines, yeah.
My name is Cindy, and this is the first or second meeting. It's really nice to meet you guys, everyone. I'm really looking forward to our circle. You know, I graduated a couple years ago, and I've been with my boyfriend or my fiance forever. It's been like 6 or 7 years now. He was at the business school too. He graduated, we graduated. He's off in Chicago. He works so hard. He's in investment banking. He works so hard. And like, I'm here and I love my job. My family's here too. As you could probably tell, we're Asian and we're really close. But again, since we graduated, he works 7 days a week. And I'm really, really devoted to him. But I'm the one who travels to Chicago to see him. And he's working 7 days a week. And you know what our visits are? It's him taking a break for dinner. Like, that's it. But I understand it because we've been together so long. And I love him and he loves me and I'm committed to him. But you know, it can be kind of tough. But then I also, like, what's so good about being here is I worry about, like, my future. I don't even know if I want to have children. I don't even know if I want to have a kid. Like, but I think I want the option, but I don't really know. So anyway, I'm glad that I'm here. And I do think it's really good that I want to wait for him. But how long will it be until we kind of sort this out? Like, are we really going to be together? And will I have kids? Will we have kids? Does he want them? Do I want them? I don't know. It's really good to share it with you guys. He loves me, and who else would put up with me? I mean, I see my friends dating. It's so hard. And if once we are married, he doesn't want kids, I mean, I think that's okay because he's who I want to be number one. Anyway, I have lots of friends here and I have my family. So, you know, I think this relationship and everything, I think it's better than the unknown, right? Anyway, I'm really glad to be here.
So, hang on. When Lori presented this, you presented it two ways. One is this is the first time this person brings it up, but then there's the fourth time they bring it up, right? So the scenario really is this person has a life issue.
This can come up in the first introduction, and then 4 or 5 gatherings later, it's the same fundamental conflict. Maybe 3 episodes into this year, but it's still the same fundamental situation.
Right, okay. So we're going to deal with it the first time it comes up, because it's how you deal with it would be very different when it comes up again and again and again, okay? Because it's called denial. What's happening here is this person has a major life decision to make. They're trying to push it off, and they're not owning the fact that they're trying to push this decision off. But the first time it comes up, I would say, maybe I can process. Cindy, it sounds like you're asking the group to look at your situation with you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, I love him.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
We make it work.
Okay. So, is this something you want us to work on right now?
No, I just wanted you to listen. But I don't know. Like, maybe we'll see where it goes.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of urgency there. What I'd like to do, group, is I'd like to check with you, and you know, we have 20 minutes left in the group, is this, are there any other pressing issues, or are we available to help Cindy with this situation and really listen to what's going on and trying to figure out just what the essence of it is? How are we, group members? Lisa?
I'd like to
Yeah?
spend some time talking.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Well then, Cindy, I'm gonna ask you to do this. I'm gonna ask you to just look inside for a moment. And there's a lot of feelings there, that's very clear. But I'm gonna ask you to check inside and then to ask the group if there's one particular aspect of this that we could help you with, okay? Could you do that?
I can try. I mean, there's so many moving pieces to this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we've been together so long. I just don't think it's worth looking at the alternative because he loves me and I'm committed, and that's where we are. So I'm committed.
You're saying you're committed, Cindy, but you're bringing it to the group, and so my sense is that you're struggling with this. Do you want us to help you with the struggle?
Maybe I'll try to think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe what I want is to just for you guys to know that this is this fundamental kind of situation that has some tensions in it.
Okay.
And wherever we go from month to month, as long as you guys can be here for me while I go through it, maybe I just want you here with me.
So what I heard you say is that you want to show to the group that this is just a big part of what's going on in your life, and it's really going to be there a lot for you,
Yeah.
and you want us to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone have any thoughts? Lisa, Jill, anybody in the group about any reactions to Cindy that you think might be helpful? Things to say to her, or not? But just so all of us, let's just check for a moment and see how we might, if there's anything there we think might be helpful to say, or not. Hillary.
So Cindy, my heart goes out to you. It feels like even though you say you're happy, you aren't. Tim, the psychologist in you, is this way too direct. And what I like from the group is it's helping people really understand and identify how they can find their true happiness. And what I would like to do, and I don't know how to do it, is help you make a decision that you are going to be happy with. And it could be a tough decision.
See, that's the thing. I feel like we are committed to each other, and it's sooner or later we're going to be in the same city. And I think I've made the decision. Like, he's number one. The children thing, it's going to work or it isn't. So that's why maybe what I want from you guys is to just be with me as it unfolds, and just be with me.
So this is, we were going to go there with the second iteration of this. So this is comes up in the first time or in the first session. You might want to leave it there because she's not asking for problem solving or advice. But if it comes up again, it's clear that she is, and she's not owning the fact that she's asking for it, okay?
And she may, even if you offer, are you happy? I'm not sure you are.
Yeah.
She may not be able to go there. She may keep staying in denial.
Could you possibly probe further and ask, you know what, can you get out a piece of paper and write down all the things you want for yourself in the next 10 years or 20 years? And start to think about what will make you happy. So
He
instead of-
makes me happy.
Okay, so put that
He
down,
makes me happy.
put everything down on your list that makes you, like, what do you want for
He
yourself?
makes me
in the next
happy,
years?
my family makes me happy, my job makes me happy. He makes me happy. That's the thing. I mean, I know it probably sounds crazy to all you guys, but he makes me happy. And I'm like, I've made my this is my relationship.
I love how you used the word like as an early 30-year. Your differentiator.
Like, so I'm not sure we're gonna get to the bottom of it, but is there more to think about on the second go-around? Or should we go to
Yeah,
our next scenario?
No, I think the second go-around is important, it's where Hillary wanted to go right away, and that is basically,
So-
calling it,
so-
saying that, look, Cindy, it really feels to us like you're unhappy with the situation and that you need to make a decision. And my thought is that might be very scary for you to do that, but it sounds like you are unhappy and you need to make a decision. Is that something that you want the group to help you with? So that would be, your instincts are right about what's going on. She's unhappy. She has made a bid to the group to let that be known, but she's not owning it. She's not saying, yes, I need to make a decision, I want you to help me with it.
And 2 years into the group, the same fundamental issue is there. We've had a conversation with the facilitator whose group this is going through this, and the person just keeps saying, this is who I want, this is what I'm willing to put up with. Like the retorts, the responses are the same. So I think it is an extreme case of denial, but she still very much enjoys coming to the group and opening up about it. And we're just, sometimes in a situation like that, we're just with that person.
And does she participate well with other people's issues? Is she a good group member?
Yeah, she tries to be.
Other than when this is so present for her that
Yeah.
it spills out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was sort of thinking
Yeah.
along those lines too. I think this kind of speaks to that point that I sort of feel like after being in circles for 2 years, I realize you can actually bond with anybody. Like as long as a person like this isn't detracting from the circles experience, it's actually a neat exercise where in your daily life you might take someone like this and be like, oh, they're so annoying, I just don't want to listen. And force yourself to acknowledge that there's this going on,
Yeah.
but almost like in meditation, just like acknowledge it and put it aside, and then focus on what what is great about this person and what she does bring to the circle, aside from, putting aside her denial.
And
like,
it's
that's
also
actually
respecting her reality. Like if she's in denial, we're not a psychotherapist who can help her get out of it necessarily. We can't. So to try to force it may backfire badly. And we have mentioned to her the prospect of speaking to someone. I don't think she has, when I say speaking to someone, I mean like a therapist. I don't think she's done it, but she comes back every month and she's a really beloved part of the group. And we've just acknowledged and accepted that she is where she is.
But something did happen, that acknowledgement and acceptance, that was worked through in the group. Because this could happen in a group and it could just be a drain. Someone who's got an issue, throws it in front of the group, doesn't own it, and continues to do that. But it sounds like your group has handled it really skillfully by inquiring, being empathic, and allowing,
And the two facilitators aren't the only ones who'll say, I'm just sensing that you're not really okay with this, even though we hear you
Right.
say you are. And we worry, like someone said, I don't know, Cindy, do people change? Like that was their way of saying, is he really? Because someone said, okay, so he gets a different job, you're in the city, but then it's gonna be proving himself on the next job. Is he really gonna be accessible? We just want you to be happy. So the group takes turns going there. Should we
Sure.
go on to our next one?
You're doing so well.
You're really good.
Actress in a past
Should we
life.
go on to our next one? This is Jane. This is Jane. Jane is responding because someone in the group, Susan, already said something. Susan, thank you so much for sharing that. I know what you mean. I've gone through so much in my life, and you guys know I'm more than 50 years old. I'm fiercely single. My religion is different from a lot of people. I'm queer, and as I said earlier, I've got the perfect for me off the beaten path career. So yeah, I've made a lot of non-traditional choices. As I hear you talk about what you were talking about, Susan, it makes me think of what happened to me last week. Kind of the story of my life. It's the story of my life. I had a big call with a client. We had a total disconnect. Guys, they just don't get it, right? Anyway, you know, obviously there are some things in life I'm not sure about, but I do know that life is tough. It's like you said, Susan, so thanks again for going there. And we do need to assert ourselves and be strong, right? So, like, back to this client thing. When a client acts out, it's so damn unfair, you know? You know, Lisa, you know? Susan, I mean, so thanks so much for bringing it up.
Yeah. Okay, time out. So what's going on is a very needy person who is putting not an issue out in front of the group, who's putting 5 issues out in front of the group, okay? And from the way Lori set it up, when Lori did this the first time, the image that came to my mind said, grab the football away from Susan, maybe Jill will be Susan, and now is running towards her goalpost with it. So as a facilitator, I've got 2 options here. I can do a group process intervention, which is, because this is injurious to a group. If Susan was sharing something and talking about a problem, and all of a sudden, that was yanked, the airtime, the topic was yanked from her, and taken away and taken another direction, that's going to have an impact on how the group understands, is it safe? Is this a place that I can put stuff out and feel that it's going to be dealt with or not? So my first inclination will be to do a process intervention, which I'll model in a moment. But the other option is to address Susan, no, you are, Jane. To address Jane about the fact that she's just dumped 5 things on the group, and that's not going to be helpful for her or the group. But let's go back into her role, and what I would say to Jane is, Jane, wow, there's lots going on, but you know what, I'm concerned. My sense was we didn't really let Susan finish. You know, she was in the middle of something that sounded really important. But let's put a placeholder here. But Susan, you know, I didn't get a sense that you were completely finished. Is that right?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. So I'm wondering if we could pick up, because you were talking about, okay, time. So that's just a way, if something's been stolen from another member because someone's needs are so high, bring it gently back to the member, and you send a meta communication to the group is you're not going to get lost in this group if you bring up something that's important, because this stuff may be very, for Susan, may have been very, you know, bringing vulnerability to the group, and you never want that to be run over by a group member whose own needs are overwhelming, okay? So one move is to bring it back. There's another move. Let's go right back to take the time out again. We're back to the same spot. And let's say for some reason it's different, that Susan had finished, that there was a pause or a silence, or maybe Jane started a group with this. Okay, she came right in and said, I've got to tell you something, you know, it's going, and the problem with what Jane has done is she's got sexual identity things going, religious differences going, a problem with a client at work going, issues with men going. It's like a whole bunch of stuff has been dumped in the group. So we'll go back into real time and then say.
So, I mean, you know, it's so tough.
Yeah.
It's like the story of my life.
Yeah. Jane, a lot's going on there. I can really feel it. But let me tell you how I was feeling when you said that there's so much going on that I need to unpack it, because you were talking
Good
about
luck.
you were talking about, you're talking about feeling on the margins because of sexual identity, because of religion. There was a situation with a client that you brought up, and issues with the styles of men at work. I'd like to ask you to do something, Jane, and that is to pay attention right now. Just kind of turn your attention aside, because there's all this is going on. And can you put a finger on the one thing right now that you'd like to to bring into the group? Because we can't do 5. We can do 1 at a time.
That's right, we really only do have 2 hours. I can try.
Yeah, okay, you just take your time, look inside. What is the one thing you'd like to put out there that we could respond to?
You know, it's like how do I handle myself in these situations where I feel like my identity is being challenged, like my identity. Like, that may sound really big, you guys, but like that's what the point of circles is, right? So like in this ridiculous client situation, he was an asshole. And it felt really challenging. And it brings up all these other things from my life. So I'm really glad we have this group, because, there's just a lot there.
Well, it sounds like this particular situation, was very, very difficult. And it brought with it a whole bunch of other stuff, just pulled it right along. So I don't know, how are we doing, group? Did you describe the situation completely? Do you want the group to respond to the situation that happened today at work? And we can get a sense of where you were, and maybe we have some thoughts about that? Does that seem where we need to go next?
Well, even just talking about it the way I just did with you guys, it
Yeah.
kind of helped
Yeah.
diffuse some of it.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't need to go into it in too much detail.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I really appreciate you guys offering.
Yeah.
And maybe another time I will want to go there. But maybe I'll actually try to understand that we only have 2 hours tonight, and
Okay.
I've already taken a lot of time.
Well, okay. Group, any thoughts about any thoughts or reactions to what Jane just said? How are you? Sitting where you're sitting, was there something you wanted to say that in a response to Jane?
I just hope you feel comfortable to kind of bring it back, because it seemed like it really upset you, and we're here to help.
So that's good. That's good, Susan. We are here to help. And sometimes we're all going to be in situations where there's just something that's happened, and just putting it out there is what has to happen. And that's fair game for this group. That's part of why we're here. Okay?
Thanks, dears. Thanks, circles.
Any thoughts? This is the end of the rope.
Yeah, this
rope
is
play.
the end of Jane's role play.
Hmm.
Hillary!
I felt like Jane was asking for advice.
This is your advice group.
And I'm wondering, I mean, she was saying, I was in this tough situation, I wasn't sure what to do.
Yeah, but then I asked her, I made the interpretation that it sounds like it's not about your sexual identity, it's about this that happened today. Do you want us to really focus in on that? And she paused, and she took time, and she said no. And so,
the thing is, no matter what the specific is, it spiders into these other issues. So even if she had asked for advice about the client disconnect, it wasn't really about the client disconnect.
part of it was about dealing with tough personalities,
Right,
right?
but when she was asked if she wanted the group to help her with that, she said no, and that has to, I believe that has to be respected. So what we did was we got it to the issue that was the most pressing issue, the issue behind her anxiety and her upsetness, and we said, okay, is this something we want the group to focus on with you now?
And if I had
And she said
said,
no.
yeah, if we have time, and I'm really sorry I took your point, Susan, but if we have time, let's go into what happened in the client meeting. But I didn't go there. I actually kind of reflected and realized that even just venting made me feel a little better. Now, I don't know whether the composite people who do this always make that choice. But to Tim's point, part of what we do as facilitators is try to stay with the person. And we have to trust, if she says, no, I don't need to go there, then like the way Susan responded, Jill Susan, was helpful.
Yeah. So what Jill said was very important because it reinforced the group norm. That what you just did was okay, and we're here for it. Yeah.
And if you decide you want advice later on today or at the next meeting, like, that's what we're here for, bring it back.
So we have one more.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
You know, when we labeling this airtime hog, and another personality that I've heard of and that we experienced in our group was somebody who's not aggressive in that way or demanding, but so yeah, what's new? You know, I went to a reunion, my reunion this weekend, and I ran into some old friends. And so this one friend, and actually I've known her back from when I used to live in Philadelphia, and she had a son the son went to HBS and married a really nice woman. And so the conversation just goes on and on and on, and it's 15 or 20, and it's going, you know, it's going
So what
around
do you
and
guys
around.
do, Lisa?
That's something I think it's harder to. So what we did is we had to let it go for that time, but then we instituted a timer the next time. Because it's hard to interrupt and say, oh, you know what, maybe we should have a timer. You can't do that while the person's talking, but we had to do it for a little while, institute, everybody gets, and I was the keeper of the time. And that sort of stopped. I think that was enough of a message to everyone to take up. So I don't know.
And this goes back to the earlier
The
in
norms.
this, you know, training, the discussion of the norms in your first meeting. Put that out there, say, you know, one thing we heard a lot in training is that sometimes there are people that they may not intend to, but they go on and on and on, and it's hard to rein them in. So let's have a norm that we like try not to do that, and if at some point we feel like we need to do a timer, some groups do that. So you set it up in the beginning so that if you have to revert to it later, it's less awkward than.
Yeah, I mean, if you get that norm going. But there is another way to go with this, Lisa, okay? And that is similar to this air hog situation. And that is, so you're going on and on talking about the son's relationship and that, okay. And I might say, Lisa, I'm listening to your story and my sense is that there's something there that you'd really like to bring to the group. So I'd like you to pause for a moment. And again, check inside, just right now, just check inside. We've heard a lot of things about your friend and your friend's son, but what's the crux? Is there something right now that you want to put in front of the group? Take the time to look inside and see if there's that one thing that has energy there that you want to put in front of the group.
The magic is being able to say, take some time, look inside, and what's the one thing? Like that's.
Yeah.
And I think as a facilitator at the beginning, and I'll be honest, I was very concerned about doing that because it seemed like the person was fragile and might say, like be a little bit insulted or feel, I felt like she needed to
How did you feel when I said that to you right now? Did you feel like that it was, did you feel like you were being supported or attended to? Or did you feel like that, how did you feel when I said that?
I felt like it would have made me start to think about, yeah, you're right, I just need to get to the point. Maybe I wasn't really thinking, and I would have thought about it, but I don't know. that in the real live scenario, that would have come across as well as you did it. I don't know that I could do it that well.
So what it was, I was inviting more from you, actually. I was inviting you to participate more deeply. And the language I used was invitation. I was actually drawing you in closer, even though it was, I was drawing you in closer rather than shutting you off. But I was saying, we really want to know, but get in touch with what is urgent, what's important here. So it's that invitation to get focused, yeah.
Really good to think about.
Tim, can I ask you a question about that? So Lisa and I are in the same group, and Lori was doing a nice job interpreting that. This person, we run our groups in sort of just like, let's go around and give updates, and then if like a burning desire comes up, we sort of gravitate to that. And this individual likes to give a thorough update.
A very thorough update.
And that includes friends, nephews, cats, owners, sisters, walkers. Like, I mean, we get that. But in that way, it's sort of like that's how she chooses to spend her time. And as Lisa says, like, she's very well connected and involved in the community, but I'm not sure how deep her friendships go. And so I feel like this is a way for her to be heard and, like, all these things she experiences be validated in a way. So it's tricky because I'm not sure there often is anything particular, like she sort of just wants to make, this is what I've been doing for the last month.
So does she do that, do you do a regular check-in where everyone goes on the round room? Is that when she does it?
Yes. And
Then I would go with Jill's suggestion there, to put a timer on the check-in.
Yeah.
That's very different when someone brings something into the group, and then it goes on and on and on.
Yeah,
That-
yeah.
And we often give a 1 minute warning if it's
Oh, that's a
if
good
everyone
idea.
has 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
At 5 minutes, it's like 1 minute.
Okay.
And we use people's phone and we pass it around, so it's not just the facilitators doing the policing.
Right.
Yeah, I think a timer on check-ins is strikes me as a good idea.
Yeah, that it worked well. And now
And I
she
think
seems
it's-
to naturally.
So
From
you
our
guys-
experience, it's something nice to introduce at the beginning, so that you don't have to introduce it later and make somebody feel a little awkward about
Exactly.
it.
It's like process check-ins, you wanna do them before you need them, so that when you need it, it doesn't feel so pointed and so awkward. We only have 12 minutes, cause we promised we'd be done at 5:30. Let's do one more role play really quickly, and then we'll have, some time at the end, alright? Ready? So, Erin is one of the facilitators, and my name is Eve. And Erin just opened up the group. Erin, thank you so much. I'm so excited about circles. It's gonna be great for me. In my job, I'm managing director at the firm. I never, ever, ever get to let my hair down. I love my job. It's so great to have all this responsibility, but there's so little time. So it's so great to have this opportunity and this time with you guys, especially because, like, all these amazing HBS women, how cool is this gonna be? But this thing about time and like not ever getting to let my hair down, like last month with our kids, like an extended family, 8 of us went on this 3-week sailing vacation. It was so cool. But by the same token, like, kids kind of got on my nerves. But it was a really special trip. I love my kids. Like, they're great. So, I'm excited about this group. I know I can learn so much from you guys. Like, we're all so smart and capable. It's gonna be so awesome. Right?
Yeah? So, okay, timeout, process comment. So, someone is feeling vulnerable indeed, and they've got to let you know that they're a managing director and they have wonderful children, they've got lots of money, and they go on fantastic vacations. And so this person is vulnerable and needs to put all this out there. There's a risk, especially when this type of behavior happens early on in a group, and we're back in the Harvard networking get-together situation where it's a cocktail party, and it's cocktail party-like behavior, and that's not what the Circles experience is. So what would you do? The first time this happened, I'd do nothing, as long as it lasted just that long, okay? If this was like the check-in time, I wouldn't do anything. But you know that's where this is headed. This person, that vulnerability is not going away, and this behavior is going to surface again. So the first time, I wouldn't comment. Second time, so let's just pretend that Lori just did that exact same thing, only it's the second time, or it's the third time, with, you know, different vacations and different children accomplishments, whatever it is. I would be tempted, and this is just my style as a facilitator, to go right at the issue, okay? Because I can, to go right at the issue, and I might say something like, you're Eve, right?
I'm Eve.
You're Eve,
It's
yes.
all about Eve.
Yeah. Eve, there's a lot of great stuff going on in your life, and I'm glad you're able to bring it here. But you know what? I want to make sure that we're all clear in this group that this is a place where not such good stuff can be brought, you know? And as a matter of fact, my experience in groups like this is that their biggest contribution is for situations where we're struggling and we're uncertain and there's difficult stuff. So I'm just wondering, as I look around the group right now, if there's someone who's feeling right now you're in that situation, or Eve, I'm wondering if there's something that's difficult for you that this group could really respond to.
And that's, if you look at the second arrow, what Tim just said is what's captured on this page.
We really do want to break a norm of this is another cocktail party situation, when someone tries to. It's not that you're trying. It's a sad situation. It's this vulnerability that there's no permission or no sense of safety to express. And this person joined the group, so somewhere unconsciously there's the belief that maybe this is a place where I can really share stuff.
I just like on the flip side of things, this is someone who's obviously going on and on,
Yeah.
but we also want to make it a safe place to bring the things you want to celebrate
The celebrations.
as well.
Yeah.
Like somebody in my group
Yeah.
worked really hard on a paper and got it published.
Yeah.
And we all, you know,
Yeah.
and it wasn't, you know, I guess this
That's
is more
very
like
different.
patterns of, you know, constant
Yeah.
bragging versus, but just like in dealing with it and talking about this being a place where we talk about struggles like not completely shutting down people from sharing accomplishments.
Oh, I would never shut down someone sharing.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you
But-
are, I'm just saying.
But-
Yeah, it's just something to keep in mind, and that's why when we did this page on it,
Yeah.
I'm just really mindful of
Yeah,
time.
sure, yeah, go.
You know, these two threats to this intimacy. One is this person who's like, my kids, my work, it's all so great. And the other one is if someone has expressed something really personal and vulnerable, but there's someone else in the group who seems to need to shut it down because she's afraid to go there. Maybe you can say, guys, you know, I think Lori has shared something that's important. Can we take a moment and check in on where we are inside on what she talked about? And Lori, like, how are you doing? Like, where are you on this? Are you okay? So it can work both ways. Sometime when someone doesn't want to if someone's not comfortable with the first person getting a little vulnerable, you have to help the person who is vulnerable be there. So don't let an expression of vulnerability go disregarded.
I just have a suggestion, or maybe you can tell me if you think this works, but I guess professionally we work with a gentleman who basically his job is to like get executives to open up, and he always starts with asking them about like where they grew up and sort of cutting through that, you know, needing to just like, this is an interview, I need to make sure that this guy knows that I'm the best.
Yeah.
So he starts with like, so tell me like where did you grow up? Like what did you do in high school? And just immediately, I just wonder if like that might be a way to kind of break the ice, either the first time or the second time or the third time, and like in one of the circle sessions, try and, you know, get that level deeper with people just to force that in a more
It
clinical
could
way.
be, Alicia, I mean, that's why what we gave as suggestions for what to do in the very
Yeah.
first meeting, to help people go back to either like, when we said bring a picture, it was like, not only bring a picture of something important to you, but maybe it's a picture of you when you were a little kid that says something about you today and why you want to be. So you can definitely go in that direction. Thank you. Fun to role play. Not.
Great.
Where are we? So Tim spoke about needing more support, what to do with more support, and Jill has some final thoughts and then some next steps.
Yes, so this is sort of a high level, oh,
Mike?
can you still hear me without a microphone? Okay, thanks. This is sort of a high level summary of themes that have really emerged over the last 2 years. So the things that really play into a circle's success that you should be thinking about as facilitators. Number one is vulnerability. So I think we've beaten it over the head, but the best way to create an environment where people feel comfortable sharing is for you to kick it off that way and you know, create that sort of sentiment in the room. Second is communication. So encourage the group to speak up, you know, to the process check-ins and everything. This is a group effort. It will be a group success. It's not just a facilitator success. So encourage your group to speak up if they think something's not going right, if they want to suggest a change to what you're doing, and talk it through, like process it together. Teamwork. It's, you know, you need to instill in the group that this is not all on the facilitators, that the success is on everybody, and that teamwork comes in so many ways, in people committing to show up, and people helping to organize, and people helping to shape the conversations and the content. And commitment. You know, if people can't commit, they probably shouldn't join the program because it can be detrimental to the group, so really emphasize. And with all of these things, it's really important when you start your group to remember that not everybody in the room has gone through this training. Most of them haven't. So they may not have as complete a picture of what this program is supposed to be as you do. So that first meeting is an important time to share it and to share these, you know, a lot of what you learned today and these key points.
So with that, now that we've gone through all this, would you like to be invited one by one to share why you'd like to be a part of Circles? Hillary, you're in.
I'm in. Happy to share.
Yeah.
Who wrote True North? Finding Your True North? George something?
Yeah, Bill George.
Bill's work.
Bill George. In his book, he talks about how what limits a lot of our success and happiness are internal issues to ourselves. And they're really hard, to the point you made, Tim. They're really hard to identify and then figure out how to deal with. And that's what I hope the Circle will help me achieve.
So I didn't know what to expect when I decided, hey, this sounds really interesting. I've been a part of women's networking groups before. They always feel a little empty, a little superficial. But you know, I'll try it out. But after kind of listening and hearing more about what the program is, it's really a lot deeper than that. And I've been going through, I'm in between jobs now, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next. Mm-hmm. So I've been reading books like Designing Your Life and thinking about, you know, what my true north is. And it really feels like being a part of Circles would help me kind of get that like board of trustees.
Yeah.
In a way that
yeah,
like a sounding
exactly.
board and like an advisory board in terms of advice.
Your life design team.
Right, and just having a group of objective folks who are really kind of committed to helping versus, you know, my friends or family. They tend to just always side with me, and it's not always super objective, or
that's great.
They're not as, you know, they're committed, but, you know, they have things, and it's not like we have these meetings where we get together and like help each other work through things, but this seems like a more formalized process of that.
Great.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
I guess probably a couple reasons. One is I work with a lot of men, so I have a lack of women in my life. And then I go home to a man, and so I just have a lack of women in my life. And then the other thing is a lot of my good female friends have left Boston. So I used to get this sort of organically. And when they come back in town, it just feels, it's very rewarding to go to dinner with them, but they're only back in town once every couple months.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it just, it's hard for me to have that on an ongoing basis. And so I think those two things and being able to be around great women and also sort of facilitating that lack of, organic group therapy that this sort of feels like.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
Don't be shy. Ask for help. And as Tim said, you will become a facilitator, you already are. As Lori would say, you got this. Next ups.
Okay, really quickly, so
Jill, can you just do me a favor, introduce Kirsten?
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
yes.
I just wanted,
this is
You're so nice.
Kirsten.
Yes.
Hi, she's the facilitator lead, so she will be
Come on
your
down.
contact
Come
for
on down.
Boston.
Stand in front of the three people here. Hi, now I don't need my glasses. Hi. Nice to meet you.
See you again. So you've got half of the regional
Boston regional
leaders here.
team.
Okay, so what's gonna happen, just calendar-wise, we have the open house tonight for new members. We're gonna send out the survey tomorrow.
It probably will go out Friday at the
Friday?
request of our marketing team, because there's other stuff going out tomorrow.
Okay, so Friday, change that to the 27th. And then it will close the following Friday, if that's okay,
Yep.
1 week.
Yes.
And so during that week, we'll just somebody from the regional team will just schedule a quick 5-10 minute phone call with you, just to kind of have a quick chat and
It's like follow-up
yeah,
after
it's just
today.
like a follow-up. And then from between November 3rd and November 27th, the regional team and the internal team will work on forming the new circles, assigning new sign-up people to old circles that want members, and then on the 27th, the facilitators will get an email from the regional team that says, who's in their circle,
Here's your team.
and some instructions on reaching out with the first email. And if you have a co-facilitator, it'll have that person's information as well, so you can coordinate. And then about 2 days later, we'll send emails to everybody who signed up, telling them, this is your circle, these are your facilitators, and at that point, you can then send out your first email and schedule your first meeting. It'll work differently for you because your group's established already. but
Yeah, I assume we'll get
more,
some.
you'll adjust
members
this
from
to
it,
like
yeah.
having, existing already. And then starting in January, so, we hope that the first meeting will be, possibly in December, but
Likely
latest in January. And we will schedule facilitator calls for 2018, send you all calendar invites, set it all up, and then from that point on, you'll just call into the facilitator calls, and then if something comes up in between, you can always reach out to Kirsten.
And you guys, we're gonna send the deck out. In the back of the deck, you'll see a couple sample emails, like one to the people who volunteered to host. That might be helpful. That's how one group did it. Another one, once the host was lined up, this is the note that was used to send to everyone in the group. So there's no reason you have to follow it, but we just wanted to give examples. And then there's other resources in here.
And the last slide has all of our emails and the regional committee's emails.
And does that include, you
Actually,
mentioned a list of topics?
No, so we will also send you a link to, we have a Google Drive with a folder of facilitator resources, which includes the list of topics, so we'll get that to you. We'll send that to you with this, and actually we'll make some changes to this before we send it to you.
Yeah. So that's really it, you guys.
What?
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Do you guys have any questions?
So I think the one confusing part is sort of the dynamic of advice versus non-advice, and it sounds like that's more of an organic thing and what people are looking for, because the natural tendency is when people have a problem to give advice.
Yeah.
I think the easiest way to deal with that ambiguity is to just say, do you want us to give you advice?
Yeah.
and then they'll say yes, and then you can, and then they'll say no, and then you don't, you know?
And encourage them to, you know how you heard Tim say, take a few minutes and reflect on it? Because the risk of jumping to advice is that it cuts off that seemingly messy but potentially really productive processing that someone needs to do. It's a way to kind of cut it off from going there. So you might end up going into deeper, richer places if you don't jump to advice. Other reactions, other questions?
More of a reaction. Does it make sense for somebody who hasn't been part of circles, like I'm a little nervous, I guess,
Yeah.
not having been in a circle, to then facilitate a circle? Seems like kind of Jumping
We've
right in
always
there.
done it that way.
So see, it's a really good question. Chances are you would be the facilitator of a new group, none of whom had been in a circle before. So you guys would all be newbies together, which we were 2 years ago or 1 year ago, depending on the age of the circle.
It's a good point, it's actually a point that's come up, in other places. The problem is, if somebody's in a group that's functioning and gelled and wants, so like in Hillary's group, they're gonna rotate the facilitator role, so that's why she's here tonight. But there's probably not a whole lot of opportunity for somebody who's in a group that's functioned well, then say, I wanna be a facilitator and wanna go to a different group and leave their group. So it's a little tricky, but I mean, if it makes you feel better, 88 circles are facilitated by people that haven't been facilitators in other circles before.
And don't worry, Tim is an expert here, as you're listening to him, respond to these various roles, like, but you're obviously a smart woman, and your level of involvement differs, right? Like you're more of you're not the professor in front of the class, right? You're the moderator, you're there, but Lisa's our facilitator, but especially in the beginning, her explaining things and getting us getting our processes set up, but it's much less obvious now, it's like we're all members, we have how we do this down, so this won't always, it recedes, and this won't always fall on you to be the one having these, difficult things like, oh, do you want advice? It could be the person who just talked as we go around the room in our group, maybe they asked, so don't get stressed out by this, it's not,
It's a
It's
heavy
fun
goal in the
if
first meeting.
Yeah.
And then in the first few meetings, you might be guiding the conversation a little bit more. Then it becomes, you just tune in to the times when it needs moderating. And then eventually the group sort of runs itself.
And hopefully you will be a co-facilitator. So you'll have a partner, you'll have an ally. And I really believe that if you just approach that first meeting from your heart and don't think about it as a meeting where you have to deliver, you're just kind of doing it from the heart and setting out some ways to help it start. And you can say, you guys, I'm kind of nervous about this. You can say it, put it out there, and let it be part of you being open and vulnerable.
And so when you start, you'll have somebody else. And one thing is, when I started, I was uncomfortable too about taking on this role, and I started it from the perspective of, what can I possibly do to make this group as successful as possible? And I told, that's my goal, I want us to be a successful group. And I looked at it more of, sort of in a servant leadership role, what can I do for you all to make this work? And trying to figure out, get a sense of what they need you for. But the other thing is that here it seems like you have to respond in a minute. And you do have so much more time to think about it. You'll have a meeting and something will feel like it wasn't right, that didn't go as well or made you uncomfortable. You have time to process it. You can talk to your co-facilitator, you can talk to us. So between then and your next meeting, you will feel like you have had the chance to think about it, reflect on this, and then respond. So we all rushed it all into one, but you do have a lot more time to think.
Terrific. You guys, thank you very much.
Can I add one note? I was wrong, the survey actually will go out tomorrow afternoon. I just can't send it tomorrow morning.
Yay, Lindsay.
Tomorrow afternoon.
I was gonna say, when you said that, you mean we won't be getting your email tomorrow, we'll be getting a message asking for money tomorrow?